Hey bookaholics, so welcome back to another video. We are going to be going through another bingo board. It is the 2026 bingo board for our fantasy bingo. For those of you who don't know, just completed the 2025 one. That's the most recent of my sit down videos that will be up on my channel. But basically our fantasy bingo is over on Reddit fantasy subreddit. We have a bingo board that goes up at the 1st of April every year, and it's a load of quite specific prompts that have two tiers. You have the already relatively specific prompt, and then you have the hard mode prompt that makes it a bit more difficult. Last year I did do a add-on challenge where I was also reading only women and non-binary authors. I'm not going to be doing that this year because I'm going to be moving country. I definitely don't want that extra challenge layer going on. Also, because I'm going to be moving country, might not be in the financial position to be buying a whole lot of books. So I am going to try and make sure that I am reading as many of these as possible off of my TBR, if not books that I know that I'm going to need to be buying for book clubs or whatever. The other alternative is just I might need to purchase a couple of books as opposed to the majority of them. So this one is a TBR based one. It is books I already own, so that then I'm not going out and buying more books at the minute, which is just not a great idea when you're moving country, you know? So we're going to go through all of the prompts. I'm going to go through the books that I have provisionally planned. These are not rigorous. This is not something I have to stick to. I didn't exactly stick to it last year. A lot of them I found a book that fit it even better, or just one that I actually managed to get to, one that I managed to purchase, whatever. Sometimes they change, but this is a TBR that I can at least bounce off of, that I can hopefully get some books read that I already own. So without further ado, we're going to go into the prompts. I'm going to go through what the prompt is, what the hard mode is, the book that I plan on reading, and whether it works for hard mode to the best of my abilities. Obviously I won't know for sure until I've read it, and also at least one recommendation for each of the prompts. So this is going to be a long one, so you might as well buckle in. I'm not going to be going through synopses of these books. I did slightly one sentence ones in my wrap up. These are all going to be in videos and vlogs anyway. I don't have the time to go through all 25 prompts plus recommendations if I'm going to be doing synopses. We will be here forever. So sorry. The first prompt is trans or non-binary protagonist. And we have the story features a trans or non-binary protagonist. Protagonist must not be an alien or a robot or any kind of other thing that often gets given non-binary pronouns. And the hard mode is that it's set in a pre-modern time period. The one from the Our Fantasy recommendations list that I'm most interested in is The West Passage by Jared Pachacek. I don't know where the inflection is. I don't know a huge amount about this one, but I did see on Reddit Fantasy that people were recommending this one as a hard mode one. It's one that I am interested in reading, so why not? But again, I don't know exactly how it fits. For ones that I know definitely fit hard mode, we have The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie. This is a Hamlet retelling, and we also have Sister Song by Lucy Holland. Both of those have at least one of the POVs is a trans character, and both of them are set in medieval times. Judge a book by its cover is the second tile, and we have read a book based on the title. This can be a title so epic you had to pick it up, or so weird and off-putting you needed to know why it was called that way. And then for hard mode, it is to dive in without reading the blurb or any summaries. So this one I've done a little tiny bit of a cheat on. So the title I've gone with is Diavola or Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. For me, Diavola being she-devil, fantastic. And then on top of that, it makes me think of Diavola pizza. So, you know, win-win. I did purchase this without reading the synopsis. I bought it because it was on a gothic fantasy list, so I just knew a couple of buzzwords for a gothic horror read for a vlog that I did. But I did read the synopsis at the beginning of the vlog, but I then immediately started reading it. So I feel like that counts because the intention was to read it with knowing as little as possible. If not, I'm sure I'll read something else. And the one I'd recommend to you, and again, can't tell you much about it, but is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor, because what a title, and I need an excuse to recommend this book at least once per video. For the third square, we have translated, a story that has been translated from a language you don't read or speak. And for hard mode, first translated into a language within the last 5 years. Now, for me personally, I have a couple on here. I have a vlog project where I'm planning on reading 3 Asian fantasy and sci-fi that are translated works. Of the 3, only one of them was published in the last 5 years for hard mode, which is The Blood of Old Kings. And another one that I would really like to get to, and I would hopefully get to this year as well, is also The Colour of Revenge by Cornelia Funke, because those are originally translated from German. Now, this is a weird one for me because I have a rocky history with translations. I studied a bit of etymology, so I am really into languages. I can read in 4 languages. I can read in English, French, Italian, and Spanish. So a lot of the books that I read, if I read a European one, I read them in their original language, German ones being the few that I do read as a translated version. I have an odd relationship with translations because where possible, I will try and read books in their original language. Therefore, I don't have a huge amount of recommendations for you. I know that the obvious ones being, for example, The Witcher, again, the Inkheart series. There's also, if you're wanting a young one, a fun, easy one, there's the little vampire books, you know, from the movie. Those ones were originally in German as well. I don't read a lot of translated fiction. That's what I'm trying to get into, because for school, I had to read books that were originally written in English, but I had to read them in Spanish because I was in a Spanish school. And I hated reading translated books. Now, obviously, reading translated books that are not from a language I speak is a different thing. But because of those early years of me hating reading books that had been translated, because it didn't flow right in my head, because I knew how it's supposed to sound in English, I have a rough history with translated fiction. I don't have a huge amount to recommend here, so sorry I'm not much help on this one. The next title that we have is small press or self-published, and that is to read a book published by a small press, so not one of the big 5 publishing houses or Bloomsbury, or a self-published book, so that was published by the author themselves. Also, same as every year that this title comes up, it's if it was formerly self-published but does get picked up by the publisher, you can only count the square if you read it before it was traditionally published. For me, I am going to be going for the hard mode, which is a book that has under 100 ratings on Goodreads, or is by an author from a marginalized group. I'm going to be reading Palom by L.L. McRae. This is self-published. It fits the threshold because it has 91 ratings currently on Goodreads, which is astonishing, at least for now, unless 9 people read it before I do. And one that I would recommend to you is Alpha by K.D. Martezi. K.D. Martezi being Chris from A Fictional Escapist. I'll leave him linked down below. He's an amazing human being. You should check out his channel and his book. I really loved Alpha. It was great. It is one that, because he's my friend, I do have bias in the sense that it is me seeing the way that my friend is expressing certain experiences of his, as well as expressing conversations that he wants to have. He is someone that I always find really interesting. He's someone I just enjoy talking to because of the way he expresses himself, and that comes through in the book. So I'm going to have that level of bias for it. But I would say, if you are looking for a book that is a new take on like a sci-fi dystopia take on werewolves-ish, kind of, I would say go for this one. It's a really good book. It counts for all 3. It is small press. We do have under 100 ratings on Goodreads, at least at the moment. And he is also an author from a marginalized group because he is part of the Rainbow Umbrella. I would highly recommend you check it out. The next one we have is Unusual Transportation. And we have a story that includes a surprising method of moving from place to place. By unusual, we mean that it's out of the ordinary in real life and uncommon in the book's broader genre. So, for example, using a spaceship wouldn't be unusual in sci-fi, even though it would be in the real world, for example. And for hard mode is that the transportation does not use combustion powered or steam powered engines. The one that I have is one that I own, that I just saw was a recommendation on our fantasy bingo, apparently for hard mode. I don't know, but it was reiterated by multiple people, but I don't know what it is yet because I've not read it. And that is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. I don't know much about this book. Simon Jimenez is the kind of author that I like to go in a little bit blind with, but it counts for this, so I'll take it. The recommendation I have for you is Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. It's not a book that I absolutely love, but it was an interesting one. It is one that I think is a bit of a Marmite book. A load of people either found it fascinating or DNF'd it, so it's a bit of a Marmite book. I gave it 3 stars. Like, it's not a new favorite, but it had some interesting conversations, especially to begin with. And we have both a sentient train, and we have also in the first part, our protagonist travels by flying moose. And like, the moose is not organic in the sense, like, they're not natural, they're created, like they are grown almost, but they do eat as opposed to any combustion or steam. It's complicated in the world, I promise. It does kind of make sense, but it's an unusual form of transportation. Anyway, flying moose I don't think is common anywhere. And then we also have a sentient train later on. In the next row, the second row, we have the first square, which is square 6, is the afterlife. And for this one, it is a story that deals with the realm of the dead. So this can be communicating with the dead, spirits transferring over, or simply being set in the afterlife. And for hard mode is that the afterlife does not depict good place versus bad place dichotomy. I personally am going to be going with My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Van Veen, because our protagonist does have a spirit companion and does also partake in seances, but the seances are fraudulent. So that's what I'm going to be using. I have already read this one and I know that it does fit this category. The way it talks about spirits throughout this book is fantastic as well. And then the one I'm going to recommend to you is The House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is another one where you kind of have a house that has a spirit within it, and it's kind of creepy, and it works for this prompt as well. Works for hard mode. Next one we have is Game Changer. So we have a story that features a game or a competition, and the hard mode is the protagonist bends or breaks the rules in some way. One that I think works for this, but I won't know until I've read it, is The Blood Trial by N.E. Davenport. And this one's a dystopia fantasy, I think, and it does have, I mean, blood trial, it has trials, so I'm fairly certain that counts as a competition. And then the one that I would recommend, this is stretching it a little bit, but if you do count it, then it definitely does work for hard mode, and that would be The Inheritance by N.K. Jemisin. The first one being The 100,000 Kingdoms, or whatever it's called. That one, we do have all of the descendants of this one guy competing to be his heir, so I feel like that counts as a competition, and our protagonist kind of bends the rules a little bit. I can't tell you exactly how. The next one we have is Vacation Spot. A story takes place in somewhere you'd like to visit, either fictional or non-fictional. This is subjective, everyone has different tastes. Anything that you count as long as you think that you would enjoy visiting this world. Now, again, as a visitor, I think I'm fine with this one. I wouldn't want to live here though. We've got Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. It does look very whimsical. Would I want to live there? No, because running water, you know, and just electricity. It does sound very cute. I really want to get to this series. It's one that I own all 3 books, one that I've been desperate to read, and I just haven't been able to squeeze it in, and that's just killing me at this point, so I really do want to get to it. Ones that I would recommend to you, we have Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. This one is set in like a witchy town in modern day America, so I would recommend, it's in the north as well, so it's like temperate weather. It's not like down south where it's really hot, which matters to me. It gave me very whimsical vibes, and it's somewhere that I would quite like to visit. It seems like they've got a load of witchy shops because it's where everyone there is a mage or a witch, so that sounds very cool. And another one that is another place that I think I would enjoy visiting is the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. Just that type of utopic world, man, it sounds amazing. I definitely enjoy visiting. The next one we have is 5 short stories. This is a square that comes up every year, so you need to read 5 speculative short stories, and then hard mode is to read an entire anthology or a collection, and it must contain at least 5 stories. I am going to go with Book of Witches, which is edited by Jonathan Strahan. This is one that I've been eyeing up for a while. It's a collection of loads of different really popular authors writing short stories on witches, and they tend to be quite diverse across cultures as well, which is something that I really love about these collections. And therefore I know this because of the one I'm going to recommend to you, which is the Book of Dragons, also edited by Jonathan Strahan. And in this case, it is the same. It's a load of popular authors, but writing about dragons instead of witches. I knew that I really enjoyed the way that Book of Dragons was put together, so I know that I will enjoy Book of Witches. And the final square on this row is Older Protagonist, and the story features a main character who is at least 50 years old. The hard mode is that the protagonist does not have exceptional longevity or immortality. For example, not an elf, dwarf, vampire, god, etc. This one, I don't know if it works or not for hard mode. Bear with me. So I'm going to go with The Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Now, at the beginning of the book, our protagonist is in his 70s. I think he's 75. But he does get a new body to be a young man so that he can join this war. So at the start, he is an older protagonist, and then he gets the new body. So I think it would count for hard mode, but if you don't think it does, let me know and I'll see if I can find something else. For recommendations for you, I have The Undertaking of Twyla and Frank by Megan Bannon, because Twyla is in her 50s, I think she's 53, and Frank is just a little bit older, I think he might be about 56. And they're talking about retirement and stuff as well, so it is very centered on the fact they're older. It's my favorite from the 3 that we've had from the Tanria series so far, so I would highly recommend you check out that whole series, to be honest. Starting the 3rd row, we have a duology. So it's to read the first book in a duology of a hard mode by an author you haven't read before. I personally am going to be trying Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall because he's an author I'd really like to try. I want to read more queer books by queer men. And this one sounds amazing because it's Regency inspired. The one I'd recommend to you, again, it entirely depends on if this is an author you've read before or not, but I like putting her on these lists, and that is to read Earthseed by Octavia E. Butler, the first one being The Parable of the Sower. The next one is the book club pick. I always go in with the best of intentions, being like, okay, I'll actually join this year. Will I? Probably not. Will I then at some point just look at the list and be like, have I read any of these? Cool, pick that one. That's what normally happens. I'm not gonna lie. So that's probably what will happen again this year. The next square is published in 2026. Read a book that was published for the first time, so no reprints or new editions in 2026. And for hard mode, it's the author's first published novel. The only one that I have that I would like to get to that is a debut author is How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days by Jessie Silver. That one sounds very good to me. I am excited to give it a go, but that's the only one that I've got on my radar, and I haven't actually read any 2026 releases yet, so I can't actually give you any recommendations either. If you're wanting any other recommendations, I will leave my friend Louise's video linked down below. She's just started a series of videos this year where she's going to read her favorite new release every month to see how she likes them, because she always does like anticipated releases videos, and then she wants to make sure that she's forcing herself to prioritize them. So I'll leave her first video for that link down below, because they're all 2026 releases. I don't know if they're debuts or not, but that's where I was kind of reminded that How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days was coming out this year. So I'll leave that video link down below, and then you can go follow her along. If she talks about one that fits the prompt, then you'll be able to kind of get an idea, because you'll be reading it immediately after release. The next one that I have is Explorers and Rangers, and that is a story that features either an explorer, so a character who travels and investigates an unfamiliar region, or a ranger, a wilderness or forest orientated warrior frequently specializing in things like stealth, bows, tracking, and other hunting related skills. And then for hard mode, we have the explorer or ranger has an animal companion. Now, I myself am going to be trying The Last Gifts of the Universe by Riley August. There is a cat on the cover. I'm sure it counts. It kind of is giving me a little bit of Becky Chambers vibes. It's kind of giving To Be Taught a Fortunate vibes. It's someone who is going and investigating, space archaeologist, for want of a better word. They go and investigate different planets, and then they kind of see the signs of life on this planet, like just before the end of days on this planet, and they're investigating it, and it sounds very cool. And yes, there's a cat. Why wouldn't I? For Ranger, the only one I can think of that would kind of work would be the Fast Year trilogy. Fitz always has an animal companion. He is wilderness and forest orientated. He is good with tracking and other hunting related skills. So while stealth, which is hilarious because assassin, but while stealth is not necessarily his strongest suit, and he's a battle axe kind of dude as opposed to a bows kind of dude, all of the other stuff I think would work for Fitz, so you could get away with starting around with the Eldlings, which I will always encourage you to do. For the next one, we have Duology Part 2, which is to read the second book in a duology. For this square, you would be given an exemption on you're normally not allowed to read the same author for multiple squares. This one you would get an exemption, so you would be able to continue the series if you wanted to. However, the hard mode is that you finish a different duology from the one that you mentioned in the first half of the duology prompts, if that makes sense. I myself am going to try and read The Weavers of Alamaxa by Hadir Elspy. So I would like to read that entire duology, with the first one being The Daughters of Izhar. That series sounds so good. My friend Mare has raved about it. It sounds flipping brilliant. It's like suffragettes but fantasy Egypt. Sign me the fuck up. So very excited to try that one. Don't know a huge amount more than just suffragettes in Egypt, because why would I need to know more? I would like to just binge that duology. They're not very long, so that one's going on here. For recommendations for you, I would say read the Texas Kalan duology by Arcady Martin, for absolutely no reason other than that I really like that series, and it's a duology. I could do a whole video on duologies though, if you wanted. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, if you want me to talk about duologies, because they're an interesting one when it comes to like middle book syndrome and stuff. Could be fun. We're going to move on to the fourth row now, though. The fourth row being one word title is the first one on that row, which is the story that has one word as the title that you'd have never guessed. And the hard mode is that it's not a proper noun, so no people or places, which is odd, because I swear if I were wanting to make it hard mode, I'd say no adjectives, because like, you know, one word titles and adjectives, they're a thing. I myself am going to be reading Turbulence by Sumit Basu. I don't know a huge amount about this, but it just sounds really good. And I think I first heard of it over on Stephen Arian's channel, which is sadly discontinued. But I think I heard about it first on there. I think whether he did an interview with the author, I could be wrong. It's definitely from an interview with the author. Then the person I've most watched interviews with authors with is Stephen Arian. So it's likely there. What I'd recommend to you, if you're wanting a short, quick one that would definitely count, would be Hex by Jenny Fagan. Love that book so much. It has my heart and soul. It's very feminist. Dual timeline. Not quite, really. And we're following the last moments of Gaelis Duncan from the North Berwick Witch Trials. Very emotional read, would recommend. For number 17, we have Non-Human Protagonist, a story that features the main character who is not human. And for hard mode is that there are no human POVs in the story. Now, I've seen people interpret this as there are no humans at all on page, and I've seen another one where it's interpreted as like there are no perspectives in the book. So like if it's multi-POV, none of the POVs are human. I'm interpreting it that way, but both of these that I have would work for both because there are no humans on page with these. The first one I have is The Gospel of Loki. It's the one I'm going to be reading by Joanne M. Harris. This, of course, is following the life of Loki, and this is, I believe, going to be entirely set in Asgard. So it's going to be following solely Aesir and Vanir, so the different types of gods that there are in Norse mythology, meaning there will be no humans. I feel like that counts. And then the other one that I have is Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse as a recommendation for you. This is Angels and Demons. And boy, did it take me back to my teens when I read this, because I was an Angels and Demons girly. While everyone else was in the vampire era, I was an Angels and Demons girly. So I really enjoyed this. Fantastic writing, made me very excited to read more things by this author. The next one I have is a cute one. We have Middle Grade. It's been a while since I've been reading Middle Grade, but we do have Read a Middle Grade, a book intended for readers aged 8 to 12. I do buddy read with my children, so I could probably complete this very easily, but I would like to do one for me. I'd like to read one that is just, I'm reading a middle grade, because one has come out. I'm very excited about it. This isn't going to count for hard mode, so I might not. I might count one of the ones that my children read as a buddy read instead, but one that I needed to put on the list, and that is The House of Chicken Legs Runs Away by Sophie Anderson. Listen, if I don't get the hard mode on this, but I read this book, I'll be happy, because I love reading Sophie Anderson's books. Like, even as an adult, my parents have read them as well. Like, just as adults, I was like, trust me, I think you'll like these, and they do. Another author, one that I would recommend to you if you would like to try middle grade and you're not sure, an author I would recommend is Elle McNichol. Elle McNichol and Sophie Anderson are my favourite discoveries of middle grade authors that I've read as an adult, and I'd highly recommend you check them out. Moving on to the next square, we have First Contact, a story that prominently features interspecies or interracial meeting for the first time. And for hard mode, we have Non-Violent First Contact. I myself would like to try Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. I loved Deathless by Catherine M. Valente, so I thought it would be a good time to try something else by her. Space opera fits the bill, so why not? For recommendations for you, if you would like it in the proper sense of sci-fi, I would go with The Saga of the Exiles by Julian May. So you could read Saga of the Exiles, the first book, which is The Many-Coloured Land, or you could read the kind of like middle book between series. That one also has a first encounters, and it is the way that humans are being absorbed into an intergalactic alliance. And then the main series is we go back to Pliocene Earth that is actually inhabited by aliens. So we get some first encounters. They're not violent. They're not peaceful, but they're not violent, at least to begin with. And then the final one for this row is Murder Mystery. So a main plot of a story that focuses on solving a murder. For hard mode, the main character is not a detective or private investigator. My Darling Dreadful Thing would work for this as well. So I could switch them around if I need to, because I'm not 100% sure if the one I've chosen does fit for this. But we have Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I think that this one has like a investigative subplot to it, because I know that the protagonist's best friend was murdered when they were younger, and her boyfriend is the one that was suspected of the murder, and now he's come back and he's trying to clear his name. So I think we're going to try and figure out what happened. I'm excited to try this one. One that I would recommend to you, one that I really, really loved, one that I don't think gets enough acclaim, and that is Far from the Light of Heaven by Tade Thompson. This one is your typical space opera murder mystery where it's like, you know, there's a ship and then someone's shown up dead, or in this case someone's have shown up dead, and we've got to investigate it. One of the two is a detective, so one's a cop, one isn't. One is the pilot of the spaceship, so kind of hard mode, kind of not. The next one we have is Cat Squisher. So the easy one is a book that is over 500 pages. The hard one is a book that's over 900 pages. I myself have two options for this. I could either continue reading Malazan. The next one that I have is Memories of Ice, which I believe is either 1,000 pages or very close to being 1,000 pages. Or I could continue reading Bound and the Broken, because I still have Empires and Dust to read by Ryan Cahill. So both of them would work really well. If you're wanting a book that can be read as a standalone that is over 900 pages, because you might not want to commit to an entire series of absolute monsters of books, we have Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer. This one is a self-pub epic fantasy standalone, and it's like 900 and something pages. The next one that we have is Feast Your Eyes on This. This is a very interesting prompt. I will definitely give it to the R Fantasy team. They do always come up with like one of the prompts each year that is just a little bit out of the ordinary, and this is that prompt. So this is a book where food or a meal are very significant to the story's plot. The hard mode is to attempt making the dish for yourself, or as close as you can if like the ingredients are not real ingredients. I myself have two options. I either have A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher, because baking, or I have Nanny Ogg's cookbook from the Discworld, and I think that there's recipes in that. Again, I don't know how real they are, but that's an interesting one to try. For you, personally, I would recommend Chocolat by Joanne M. Harris, because basically you could just melt down some chocolate, reshape it, and you're sorted. Just saying. The next one we have is published in the 70s, so read a book that was first published between 1970 and 1979. And the hard mode is that it was written by a woman. I, myself, am going to be trying The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, because I need Ursula K. Le Guin to go on her redemption arc, okay? I read all of the Earthsea books for last year's bingo and didn't have the best time. So this year, this is going to be the bingo that redeems Ursula K. Le Guin for me. I feel it in my bones. When I was complaining about it in one of my videos, someone did say that her sci-fi is way better than her YA fantasy, and I'm gonna hold them to that, and I'm really hoping that The Dispossessed pulls through for me. One that I recommend for you is one that I read last year, which is Dreamsnake by Vonda N. McIntyre. There's also at least one Octavia E. Butler, I think it's Kindred, that you could pick for this. And then there's also, I think, at least one Toni Morrison that you could pick for this as well. So there's a few in there that I would recommend. The penultimate square, second to last square that we have, is politics and court intrigue. So politics are central to the story's plot. This covers everything from royalty, elections, wars, and even smaller local politics. And then for hard mode is that the prominent focus is on politics that are at a city level or lower. So this one I am going to start with the recommendation because it is the Rock and Morrow trilogy by M.A. Carrick. And I'm starting with it because I'm flipping devastated, because I literally read the last book in this trilogy at the end of March. So if I'd have waited a week, I could have counted this and it would already be done. Frustrating. However, I loved this series and it is entirely city-based politics, so I would recommend. It's a Venice-inspired one. For me personally, I am thinking of trying Blood over Brighthaven. I'm not 100% sure if this one will work, but I know that the city is very prevalent within the story. The politics weave into the academia because this is a dark academia. Things that they are looking into in this story are potentially going to be linked to the politics and are going to make a difference on a political level. So while I'm not 100% sure this one will work and I might need to find something else, it's the one I've got on here provisionally, and we'll go from there. And then the very last square that we have is author of color. So a story written by a person of color, and for hard mode is that the author does not live in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. While I'm not a big fan of like doxing and going and finding out where people live, apparently a couple of these are common knowledge. So whether they are accurate or not, I don't know. I'm not hugely comfortable with this square because I don't really need to know where an author lives. Maybe if it was like where the author is from, that's fine, or like where they're drawing their inspiration from heritage wise. It being about where they live specifically makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but this one did come up on the recommendations list, so I will be taking it as gospel. And we have The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekhara. This one is apparently very unusual fantasy, and I'm very excited for it. I'm going to do a vlog hopefully soon where that kind of gets covered. And then the one I would recommend to you is Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lott, because I believe that she lives in Barbados. So we have now gone through all of the bingo squares. Let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on them. If you have any recommendations for me for books on especially hard mode, if you think that any of mine don't fit, if you think that there's one that you think I will like that will fit better, one that you know that I own, if you've seen my TPR videos, that you think, no, Faye, read this one instead. Any of that, I'd love to know. Let me know what you're looking forward to reading, and let me know, again, if you've read any of these books and your thoughts on them. Just chat down below. I want to know all your thoughts because this is a lot of books to talk about. Hopefully, I will have a good year getting through my own TBR. I can do this. I can not buy books. That's totally a thing that we do here on the Booksnet. But thank you ever so much for watching, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye!